it was very good to read about the Merseyside Pensioners Association, who are doing so much on the ground to keep activism alive. Audrey, Audrey, are you there?
Yes,
Audrey
I
White?
am. Yeah, hiya, Crispin. Thanks for having
Good
us
to
on.
see you again. Now,
Lovely.
what I've found that there's a lot of fixation on we've got to have more young people in politics, but I think we should have just as much fixation on more old people, because I mean, obviously on this Zoom we've got such a young audience that they might not know that that older people are doing things that are really good. Can you tell us what the Merseyside Pensioners Association are doing?
Oh my God!
It's too much.
How long have you got? We're you can speak to every union, from the UCU, the RMT, the dockers, the car workers over in Camel Aids and so on. And the years I've been in the MPA, it's been absolutely tremendous. We're out like sometimes 7 o'clock in the morning along to the docks, campaigning for toilet facilities for the transport workers who've got nowhere to, have a cup of tea or even to go to the toilet. We're on with the RMT campaigning for the guards on the trains and whatever, all the cleaners we've been doing lately. This whole under the pandemic, we've been probably more active than ever, while a lot of organisations, including the Labour Party, have ceased to function. We've done, we've been campaigning for care homes. We've stood outside Borough Victory alongside other campaigners, always alongside other people. It's not us, but we actually do take a lead, and we've got a lot of respect from people in the movement. But you know what? We learn from others too. We learn from these fabulous young people we campaign alongside, and they learn from us. We've got a very, very, very rich history in our organisation. And I'd say the one thing I'd want to say about us on this programme is, although we're called panbangers and anti-Semites by people on the right in the Labour Party, that were called crazies and trots and all the rest, and abused even by the mayor, our new mayor, publicly, we do know that we've actually achieved things in our lives for the movement, and I don't mean in any small measure, but the small measures count as well. The little gains some of us of trade unions have had, the small gains all contribute towards, class struggle, where we make gains for real gains in terms of wages or health and safety or whatever. But the big things like, some of our members were in the 47 councillors who took on Margaret Thatcher and won, who built 5,000 houses, council houses and so on. And me, with my dispute over sexual harassment, winning real gains for women. So you learn from each other. And
well, that's it. I mean, it's the experience, isn't it, that you've all had. I mean, the thing about being in politics is there are lots of defeats and lots of setbacks, but you have to keep going. And only people who've had the setbacks and kept going can show other people that it's worth pursuing. Because if you start off and you get hit by something horrible and the way the system works, you may well be deflated. But people like you, and I'm going to bring in Phil Maxwell as well, who's been doing so much up there for the Merseyside Pensioners Association. Phil, can you hear me?
Yes, Crispin. Good morning. I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Good to see you. So we spoke on the phone earlier this week. The amount of stuff that you're doing, it's like some of the people in Liverpool. Liverpool seems to lead a lot on radical stuff, but some of the other groups in Liverpool aren't doing the same kind of stuff as you, and you're inspiring other people to get involved, aren't you?
Well, we work together. I work very closely with Audrey and the rest of the membership in the city, and we're optimists because we've been members of the Labour movement all our lives, and we've got a positive experience from that. We've been involved in struggles. We've had lots of defeats, but we've had lots of gains. And something struck me about one of your earlier speakers. What's the alternative to being in the Labour Party? Well, I spent most of my life as a member of the Labour Party. Actually, I was expelled I think it was about 3 weeks ago. And I feel since then that I've been on permanent holiday. I was expelled for the crime of liking the Labour Against the Witch Hunt Facebook page. And I think we've got to get away from this idea that everything happens in the context of the Labour Party. As Audrey says, we've been involved with the RNT Unite, the UCU, other pensioner organisations. We work very closely with the Trades Council. This week was the 53rd week that we've been picketing the one-stop shops that have been closed down by Liverpool City Council. I wouldn't describe them as a kind of right-wing council. I'll describe them now more as a neoliberal council, because they basically sponsored an arms fair, and they're using the rhetoric of the Tories for justifying the cuts that they'll be implementing in the next budget, which will have a terrible impact on vulnerable people like pensioners. Social care packages have been cut to the bone. The one-stop shops are particularly useful for people who don't have connection to the internet. Over 20% of our residents don't have connection to the internet, so they need one-stop shops so they can talk to a human being about services that they can get either from the local authority or from other organisations. And to cut this service, and then of course claim that it is much improved, because every time a Labour council cuts services, first of all they blame the Tories, and so it's not their fault. But then they say, yes, we've closed these services, but actually they rebrand it and it's a better service. Now, do they really think people are that stupid? Because they're not. And
but that's exactly where your experience comes in, because other people would be hoodwinked by that, because all they do is try and hoodwink all the time. Now, you spoke when we spoke on the phone, you said that you do have a young division of the Merseyside Pensioners Association. Someone like, I'm over 50, so I could be in that group, could I?
Well, you're eligible to be a member of the youth section of the Merseyside Pensioners Association.
Right.
And we do have people who are in their 20s who come along to our meetings. Well, we used to before the pandemic, and what we've done since the pandemic is we've had a mixture of hybrid meetings on Zoom, some meetings in person, because some people, we have to respect everybody's feelings on this. They will only have meetings on Zoom during the pandemic, and some people are prepared to go to a socially distanced meeting. We try to combine those together. The pandemic has caused a lot of division in the Labour movement. It's not caused that division in the Merseyside Pensioners Association, because...
Right, well, I'm going to bring in, you've got another guest here. Now, I believe that you're the next speaker, Chantelle.
Yeah, Chantelle's been speaking at the meeting. She's like,
Chantelle, are you in
one of our boss comrades?
Yeah, she's
who inspires us.
Chantelle, are you in the young division?
So I'm Chantelle Lunt. I'm the founder of Merseyside BLM Alliance. I'm also one of the founders of the Kill the Bill Coalition. So what we tend to do is, as I'm young as a bit of a stretch, they're calling me young, but I'm one of the younger activists in Liverpool because we don't have many of us. And what I find is like, as has been touched on by Phil and Audrey, there's just so much to learn from different generations in terms of activism, but sometimes there's also a lot of gatekeeping in activism. So you're climbing that ladder and people who've come before you are actually pulling it up so you can't get up it. But with Merseyside Pensioners Association, when we were first out there protesting with BLM, they were one of the only kinds of older generation. And I mean, there were hardly any unions came out to support us, hardly any of the Labour Party came out to support us, but there was a group of pensioners there, like fully hardcore in the middle of October with the masks on, and they were like, right, we're here for you. And they've always been really supportive in terms of, you know, if we want to do something, they're not going to say, oh, no, don't do that. You know what I mean? They're going to give us really sound advice and say, well, this might work, but we've tried this before. And they're always there to kind of guide and support us, but never to restrain us in what we want to do, because we're also part of the Reclaim Pride coalition. So we've got a homophobic far-right hate preacher coming in, I think, later on in the year, called Franklin Graham in the ACC, which was mentioned. And Reclaim Pride, we want to protest, we want to take direct action, we want to get on the streets. Whereas Pride Liverpool released a statement quite early on saying, oh no, we shouldn't protest, let's just show them how great the city is. And we're like, no, we should protest. And it's great to have the pensioners and people who are a little bit more radical, like, you know, if you want to get on the street and say that you're not happy with the homophobic, Islamophobic hate preacher coming to your city, then we will be on the streets with you. So it's been a gorgeous little relationship building over the past 2 years working together. I absolutely love our Pensioners Association. And as you touched on, you know, we're quite new to the activist game and we've had a lot of losses as BLM. You know, the government do not want to listen. They've brought out the police crime sentencing court still to make it illegal to even use our voices. And to have the pensioners there showing us those little wins and kind of keeping us going. Like, we've had a big win with Kill the Bill. You know, we got loads of amendments taken out the police crime sentencing and court bill. But I don't know if I would have had the energy to keep going if I hadn't seen the pensioners having those little wins along the way, or giving me those pep talks. You know, yes, they're gonna have you off in some places, but keep going, keep the fight. You know, keep getting on the street, keep going to London, and you will get some wins. So I think without that guidance, it would have been a lot harder to keep going over the past 2 years, especially the way the Tories and Labour, I'm not even going to lie, and Labour have been carrying on against, you know, activism and the BLM and even the Kill the Bill movements.
Oh,
Can I just come in there, Crispin? Because I think what's important, you know, over this hate preacher, this is where the Merseyside pensions can actually link up in a big way, because we're in touch with the public interest lawyer about how we can stop him. We've also got Peter Tatchell speaking at our pensioners. We always have a speaker. This is the big thing about us, that we always keep educating ourselves. So we've got Peter Tatchell coming to speak to us about, you know, obviously what's happening with this hate preacher. But we've invited, you know, we're big enough for an organisation to open up and say, crikey, you know, the whole of the LGBT community would love to listen to Peter Tatchell on this subject. So we've invited comrades from LGBT community to come and listen and take part in our discussions. So, but can you imagine what a secret weapon we are? You know, these 60, 70, 80, and even the odd 90-year-old turns up, you know, in the cold winter rainy day or something or other on a picket line. We are just, you know, like, to go, oh my God, the police don't want to touch us. Yeah, although they do. I've been there. I've had a case against the police for unlawful assault on myself, but they don't really want to touch us. They don't want to put us in prison. And we've done things like take over a CCG meeting before today. And the whole of the CCG, I've actually had to walk out, and we've took over their meetings. It's in one of Phil's films. So, you know, we like to think that we're like Tony Benn, that the one thing we want in life is to say we inspired others. And that's why we love, you know, hearing from young people like Chantelle.